I'm Caroline Dowd-Higgins. Thank you for listening to Your Working Life, my podcast series featuring thought leaders in the career and personal growth arena. I know that you spend a significant portion of your life at work, so I'm on a mission to help you provide you with tools, inspiration, and resources so you can enjoy your career and love your life. And I'm so excited to welcome my very special guest. Sharon Salzberg is with me today. Sharon, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
I'm glad that you're here with me, and I want to tell our listeners a little bit about you. Sharon Salzberg is one of the leading meditation and spiritual teachers in the world. She co-founded the Insight Meditation Society with Jack Kornfield and Joseph Goldstein, and she's the author of 8 books, including the best-selling Real Happiness, Loving Kindness, and Faith. A meditation teacher for over 40 years, she's been a contributing editor at O, the Oprah magazine, and has appeared in Time, Real Simple, Good Housekeeping, Self, Yoga Journal, More, and others. She divides her time between Barre, Massachusetts, home of the MIS, and New York City. Sharon, where are you today?
Right now I'm in New York City.
Okay, got it. You're in my fond Big Apple. I'm originally from New York City, so I'm always eager to talk to fellow New Yorkers. Well, welcome. I'm so excited that you're with me. Now, Sharon, your new book is fantastic. It's called Real Happiness at Work: Meditations for Accomplishment, Achievement, and Peace. But before you and I dive into a juicy conversation about the book, I'd love to hear more from you. Tell me about your background. What brought you to meditation?
Well, I grew up in New York City. I went to college in Buffalo, New York, State University of New York at Buffalo. And while I was in college, I took an Asian philosophy course, really honestly, as far as I could remember, simply because there was a philosophy requirement. I had to do some course. And it was convenient to my schedule.
I get it.
Thought,
yeah.
Okay, that's on Tuesday. I'll do
check
that.
and check.
And the course totally changed my life.
Wow.
It was within the context of that particular philosophy course that I heard about the possibility of actually changing how you lived, changing your mind, having that power to be different through the practice of meditation. And the university also had an independent study program, where if you created a project that they liked, you could go anywhere in the world for a year and then come back and do your final year. So I created a project. I said, I want to go to India and study meditation. And this was 1970. This is kind of what education looked like then. People said, go. So I did.
That's incredible. And was that a transformative experience in your life?
It was incredibly transformative. I mean, what I was interested in were some very pragmatic tools. I wasn't drawn to, adopting a new identity, a new faith tradition or any faith tradition. I wanted to know that there were actually things I could do, I could practice in a very direct and immediate way that would change how I was, that I wouldn't have to be so scattered and so distracted. I felt very fragmented. I think that's the best word to describe myself. And I could feel more connected to myself and to others, and it seemed like those practices existed, and sure enough, that's what I found.
Wow, that's extraordinary. So why write about mindfulness in the context of work? That's what I'm really interested in. And why now? Are we in a particularly ripe time to talk about this?
Well, I think we are. I had an earlier book called Real Happiness, which is a guide to establishing or refining a meditation practice, and there were a lot of people blogging on my website about their experience using that book. And I saw, first of all, a tremendous range of livelihoods. There were hedge fund managers and investment bankers and firefighters and special ed teachers and hospice nurses, and just a huge range of ways people were earning a living. And people were talking about the tremendous challenges that they faced every day, trying to feel authentic, trying to bring their deepest values to their work. And they were also offering some very creative and wondrous solutions. So I thought, oh, there's such a wealth of material. I want to pursue that.
That's amazing. Well, I have to tell you that I'm a rookie, a newbie meditator. I've just been doing it for a few months, and perhaps you'll appreciate that. It takes time to develop one's practice. So I admire those who are at a point where they can do this more regularly and really dive deep and enjoy all the wonderful depth and nuances of meditation. And I'm getting there. So your book is especially intriguing to me as someone who is very new to the practice of meditation. And as many know, the title of your book is Real Happiness at Work. And, some people would object to that title and say, is happiness really possible, especially at work? So what's your take on that?
Well, some people have objected.
Yeah, I'm sure. Really, you probably hear it loud and clearly.
Yeah, it's not that hypothetical.
Right.
Well, yeah, people have said to me, well, how can you expect to have fun all day long at work, as though the deepest sense of happiness is just having fun all day long? Or, somebody said, we don't call it play, we call it work. If you were supposed to have a good time, we'd call it play. But really, the studies show that the strongest indicator of happiness at work is a sense of meaning. Yeah. It's not status or position, it's a sense of meaning. And this is something we want in our lives, given how long we are at work each day, many of us. And the role it plays in our lives, that should be something that's integrated into our deepest sense of what's possible for us. I also define happiness as a kind of resourcefulness, resiliency. It's not necessarily having a good time all the time, but it's the way we meet different situations.
I love that. And as a career coach, you really strike a chord when you say that so many people value a sense of meaning, right? And that concept of what do you value? It's not just about happiness, and that sense of meaning and fulfillment can be defined so many different ways depending upon the lens through which you're looking at it. So I love how this book gives you so many different ways to consider things. For example, in the introduction of Real Happiness at Work, you introduce the 5 core meditations that are the basis of all meditations in the book. Can you walk me through those?
Mm-hmm. What I wanted to do was to lay out a template so that people could experiment with doing these different practices at home and then see how they applied in their workday. It's not actually a section because it's scattered throughout, but there's a whole lot about what I call stealth meditations.
Yes.
So, when you can meditate at work and no one needs to know you're doing it.
Right.
But I think that remains kind of theoretical. Oh, it would be a good idea if I did this or that. And it's grounded, ideally, in a daily practice. It doesn't have to be that long each day, where you have a dedicated period of sitting meditation or walking meditation where there's nothing else you're trying to do but develop qualities like mindfulness and so on. So, maybe that's 10 minutes a day or 20 minutes a day, whatever it is. And I think there are these 5 elements which one can experiment with to see how many of them or which of them that you really want to pursue. So the first of them is really kind of the foundation of many, many meditation techniques, and that is cultivating an awareness of the breath. And this clearly is something that can serve us in the workday because we bring our breath to work.
We should, at least.
We should, so things like the stealth meditation would be something like, don't pick up the phone on the first ring. Let it ring 3 times and breathe. And then pick it up.
Right.
So what you might do for that 5 or 10 minute period, say in the morning, or 20 minutes, whatever it is cultivate an awareness of the breath so that this is what you keep coming back to when you're distracted, when you're scattered, and so on. And just like we do that with the breath, we also practice being aware of our emotions in an immediate sense. Sometimes we find ourselves at the computer and we've typed out the email and we've pressed send before we even realize how irritated we are or how angry we are. And then maybe 2 hours later we go, whoops, that was said with some hostility, wasn't it? But it's too late. So why not cultivate an ability to be aware as the emotion is beginning to arise within us, and then have a choice. Maybe I want to write the email and not press send right away, or whatever it might be. So again, in that period, let's say in the morning or in that dedicated period of practice, you might spend some time just being aware of the various emotions, learning how to feel them in your body, how to recognize them. And then there's a walking meditation, which is a fabulous tool because here's the kind of thing we usually do quite mechanically. And these days, multitasking, you're
Mm-hmm.
walking and texting or something like that. And so there's a way of actually bringing qualities like mindfulness forth in walking so that we really feel our body moving through space, or we feel our feet touching the ground, not with a tight, exclusive awareness that we're barging into things or people, but just having this resting place for our mind so that we're not completely immersed in, when I get there, the meeting's going to start and they're going to say this and I'm going to have to say that, and then,
Yeah.
and missing everything going on around us. There's also, in a similar way to the meditation on emotions, there's a meditation on thoughts, just to have a sense of perspective, to be able to see a thought quickly before we have gone off and acted on it, to have almost a kind of discernment about thoughts, to realize, oh, that's my old fear tape, or that's you know just an assumption I'm making. Let me leave it aside for now and check things out in a more open way. So as we sit in that formal period, or that dedicated period, we practice being aware of thoughts. And then the last one is loving kindness meditation, which is something very dear to my heart. And that is cultivating a sense of friendship towards yourself and recognition of connection toward all others. So at work, for example, sometimes people tell me at the beginning of a meeting, they'll look around the room, they'll look at each person and remind themselves, well, this person wants to be happy too, or this person has a story, even though I don't know what it is, they have a life. And just to forge a sense of connection. And we can do that formally in the meditation practice by calling different people to mind, and instead of complaining about them or focusing exclusively on what's wrong, we practice wishing them well.
That's wonderful. Thank you for describing those 5 core meditations. And I have to share from personal experience, after reading your book, I was really liberated by the walking meditation because, again, as a rookie, someone who's really exploring meditation for the first time in my adult life, I never gave myself permission to walk. I always thought that I had to remain still and that was kind of a rule, right? So it was very liberating for me to think about walking, and my practice involves an early morning walk, and it's been such a lovely experience. So I thank you for that.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the general benefits of meditation, particular to the workplace, Sharon.
Well, I think the 3 main benefits of meditation, it's like the 3 main tools of meditation, manifest very strongly in the workplace. The first is concentration. Most of us feel ourselves to be fairly scattered or distracted, maybe not in every moment or every arena of life, but we feel kind of all over the place. And what we practice in meditation is gathering our attention together, being able to be more in the moment, more aware, more in touch. And it's a tremendous benefit at work. In the second great tool and benefit of meditation is mindfulness, which is used in a whole variety of different ways these days. But it basically means having a quality of awareness where our perception of what's happening in the moment is not so distorted by bias. So I use the example sometimes of going into a meeting with like a giant agenda, not a, actual agenda, but an emotional agenda.
Yeah.
And maybe like 15 great ideas are brought forth, but we have such tunnel vision, we can't even take them in.
Mm-hmm.
It's got to be this way. And so that narrowness, that fixation really hampers us. Whereas mindfulness allows us to really take a look, to step back, not to have so much riding on things being a certain way, not to be lost in assumption. And it gives us a tremendous sense of perspective, because we do see sometimes there are possibilities where we thought there were none.
Right.
I use the example sometimes of, like, let's say you're going to a party and you run into a friend and they say, who I met? There's this new person who's going to work with us and they're so boring. And then you go to the party, and who do you end up stuck talking to but that very person
Right,
you have
right.
just been told is so boring? And so it's very unlikely that you really listen. You really look at them. You really take them in. You're more thinking about the 50 emails you need to write. And
Right.
maybe you
Right.
realize that and you think, you know what? I don't even know for myself that this person is really boring. That was someone else's impression.
Right.
Let me leave that aside for now and really listen. Really take them in. If you do that, maybe at the end of the evening you walk out and you think, oh, that person, that new person at work, they are so boring. But maybe not, because life is full of surprises when we pay attention. And so that's really what mindfulness is. It's suspending for now our immediate reactivity so that we can see more clearly.
Well, how lovely. I just want to repeat that. Life is full of surprises when we pay attention. That's beautiful. Well
Thank
put. Well
you.
put.
And
So,
then
please go ahead.
there's just to finish up that model, the
Yeah.
third great benefit is loving kindness or compassion. It's almost having a different sense of we're in this together. Sometimes if I go into a company or an agency or something like that, I'll say, well, let's just reflect. How many other people need to be doing their job well so I can do my job well?
Yeah.
That we really live in an interconnected universe. And that vision, that understanding, very almost like a bone deep understanding, is something that meditation gives us.
Beautiful, beautiful. So Sharon, the book shares 8 pillars for happiness in the workplace, and I'm going to read them so our audience knows what they are. But then I'd like you to unpack that a little bit and talk about why these 8 pillars are so crucial. So we've got balance, concentration, compassion, resilience, communication and connection, integrity, meaning, and open awareness.
Well, the first three, I'm using balance in this sense, in this book, really as an aspect of mindfulness.
Okay.
It's that not immediately judging quality of mindfulness. So balance, concentration, and compassion are like the platform. That's the foundation. As we develop the strength of those three, which we do in meditation practice, then as a consequence of that, it's like we open the door for greater resilience and clarity and communication and so on, with some kind of intentional refinement. But that forms the platform. And most of these came from my conversations with people. Like, where are the greatest challenges? And it's so interesting, like if you ask people, what's the greatest source of stress at work? It may not be the obvious, like an intractable system or trying to undo some awful problem. It's often like coworkers, or supervisors. It's the colleagues. It's the communication.
Yeah.
It's the lack of feeling part of a team, lack of being appreciated, and so on. So I took kind of the natural consequences of greater concentration, mindfulness, and compassion, and the problems I was hearing about, and came up with the 8 pillars.
Wonderful, wonderful. Talk to me a little bit more. I'd like to really pick apart open awareness. Does that have something to do with what you were mentioning earlier, really being able to live as an active listener? You talked about the reference of the party and the person who was presumably boring, and then you were pleasantly surprised when you hung out with that person at the party. What is open awareness?
That's very much what open awareness means. If we're actually paying attention, then usually we see options we might not have seen before. So it's like creativity.
Got it.
It's the possibility for creative resolution. Whereas we might have felt things are shut down, it can only work out one way, or I can't do this, it can't be done, it can't be accomplished. And when we can step back and achieve greater balance and also greater perspective, then a lot of times things will open up and we'll see, oh, there are options, or this might work out this way instead of that way, or if I just added this, then I would have the possibility of really doing this very same thing differently.
Excellent. So next we're going to talk about concentration. And I think one of the most disastrous strengths that people like to talk about, I don't think it's a strength at all, is multitasking. And I see so many people just depleted during the day, their work day, because they're encouraged to multitask, or it's just something they take on their own. And it's energy depleting, and quite often it's also not successful. So let's talk about concentration and multitasking at work, Sharon.
Well, I think it's one of the great myths of our time that if we multitask, we'll get more done and we'll do it well. And studies show we're not getting more done and we're not doing it that well.
Exactly.
And we may not be able to completely let go of it. It is kind of a sign of the times, but I really encourage people to at least some time try to unitask rather than
Unitask, I like that.
multitask.
Yes.
And it's,
That's great.
the common example would be something like you're drinking a cup of tea as you're checking your email, as you're on a conference call, as you have the TV on mute, and you're reading the crawl.
Wow.
And it's not going to be a very fulfilling cup of tea. And we so rarely look at the degree or the quality of our awareness in playing any role at all in our lack of fulfillment. Usually we blame the tea, and then we think, oh, I need like tea balls and loose tea. I can't have tea
Right.
bags.
It's the tea. Right,
the
right.
tea, and then, but if we drink the next cup of tea made so exquisitely with our new loose tea, in the same way we drank the other cup of tea, it's still not going to be very fulfilling. And so to be able to look at how we're paying attention, how fully present are we, are there times we cannot be doing 50 billion things at once, but just do one thing? And again, it may not be all the time, certainly, but we can punctuate our day with these activities.
And I think ultimately be more productive, right? Because we're accomplishing tasks well because we have focus and concentration whilst we unitask, for example.
Oh, absolutely. I think we actually do it better. And we can keep our values in mind, that we're striving for excellence, that we have a certain aspiration. We want something to be achieved out of this work, and we can keep that closer to us if we're more concentrated.
Excellent. Okay, so next I want to talk about how practicing compassion in the workplace can help us to be happier or get along with our colleagues better. How many times have all of us heard about the cattiness, the politics, the pettiness in the work environment and in life in general? So let's talk about compassion in the workplace, Sharon.
Well, compassion, I think, begins with compassion toward ourselves, which is really like a resilience skill. And in meditation, for example, in formal meditation practice, let's say your object of awareness is the feeling of the breath, the sensations of the in and out breath. That was actually, by the way, the very first instruction I received in India when I went there all those years ago, and was sit down and feel your breath. And
Yeah.
first of all, I was very disappointed. I thought, feel my breath? I came all the way to India,
Right.
And then I thought, how hard can this be? And then it was like, whoa, this is not so easy. Instead of my fantasy of 800 breaths or 900 breaths before my mind would start to wander, it would be like 1 or 2.
Yeah.
And then I would be gone, and I would be way gone. And what I heard that was very difficult to believe was that the most important moment in the process was the moment after I'd been distracted, after I'd been lost, because that's the moment we have the opportunity to be different. We can gently let go, and with some compassion toward ourselves, begin again. Just come back to the breath. Otherwise, we go into a rant, and it's like a tirade against ourselves. And it's so debilitating. It's so exhausting. And so that very simple example is what we bring to all activity, because I really believe nothing in life is like a straight shot. We go forward, we fall down. We have to pick ourselves up. We have to start over. We have an aspiration, we lose sight of it. We have to be reminded or remember we have to start over. That's the rhythm of life, of getting anything done. And so having a greater compassion for yourself actually, I think, is the most effective, most efficient way to really accomplish something.
So is it about forgiveness or just surrender to say it's okay? I fell, I'm going to get up. I'm thinking about resilience, just to say it's a
Hmm.
new day, it's a new project, it's a new whatever, right?
Yeah.
Giving yourself permission to try again and keep going.
Yeah, I think that's really what it is. There is an element of forgiveness in there just to counter the tendency,
Yeah,
to say, I am just that idiot who said that. That's all that I am.
right.
Instead of, yeah, I said something really reckless in that meeting, but I did 50 good things also
Yeah,
in that
yeah.
same morning.
Wow. So Sharon, let's talk a little bit about what we can gain from being fully present in the workplace and how that really contributes to our greater happiness.
Well, I think being fully present anywhere contributes to our greater happiness because we have a sense of integration of our being. We feel whole. We feel ourselves. We feel like we are who we are, rather than that very common kind of compartmentalization that I feel like I'm one person at home and a different person at work. We don't feel masked. We don't feel like disguised. And we can have fun. If you can
Yeah.
forgive yourself when you make a mistake and go forward, then not only are you getting more done, but there's a kind of joy in that,
Mm-hmm.
in that ability to begin again, and to see possible resolutions. And there's also, I mean, a part of resilience is an emphasis on self-care, which is very difficult for us. It's its own kind of balance. In general, it's very difficult for us.
I
People
agree.
think,
Yeah, yeah.
that's too selfish, it's too self-centered. I have a story in the book about some of my work with the staff of domestic violence shelters, where one of the directors of a shelter, her resolve toward, as she put it, their phrase, the staff that were gathered together from different shelters, their phrase was establishing a culture of wellness at work.
Very
and
nice.
and this one woman, yeah, I thought it was beautiful. This one woman, who's a director of a shelter, her commitment toward that was to try to take a lunch break every day. And everyone in the room who did not work in a shelter was really aghast. And we said, "You don't take a lunch break? Isn't it in your contract?" And she said, "Oh, yeah, but there's too many emergencies, there's
Yeah.
too much going on, and too many demands." So, because we were meeting periodically, she would come in and report on her progress. And the first time she came in and she said, "Well, didn't really work. I closed the door to my office, but someone crouched down and looked through the keyhole, and
Oh,
they saw that I was in there, so I didn't get a lunch break." And maybe like 3 weeks later, she came in again, and she said, "It worked.
good
I,
for her.
I shut the door and I turned off the lights,
Ah,
and I
good.
got a lunch break." Now, that was, I think, absolutely the right thing to do, and
Yeah.
she would be replenished and able to go on in a much better way. But it can feel so wrong to us.
Right, right. Wow, what a beautiful story. That's great. Sharon, I love your book, Real Happiness at Work: Meditations for Accomplishment, Achievement, and Peace. And let's talk about how we can buy the book. I know our listeners are very eager to know how they can get their hands on the book.
I think the book is available, certainly online. It's available in bookstores.
Got
Um,
it. So Amazon, Barnes& and Noble, and all major retailers, correct? And I,
mhm.
I know you are definitely active in the social media sphere, so we can follow you on Twitter and Facebook. And I believe your website address is sharonsalzberg.com, and I'll
Mhm.
spell Salzberg Salzberg, so sharonsalzberg.com. Sharon, what a joy to have you on. It's been an absolute delight. I have learned so much from you. And as I said, as a new to meditation practicer, I really appreciate how you have shared these wonderful resources and techniques and have given me a new way to look at my work on a daily basis. So I thank you.
Well, thank you so much.
Take good care, and I wish you all the very best with this book.
Thank you.
And I want to thank you for tuning into Your Working Life, where my goal is to help you design your career and life destiny so it doesn't happen by default. True career and life satisfaction is really possible, and it's time to embrace what you love doing so you can do more of it. I'm Caroline Dowd-Higgins. Take good care.